Hey there, it's Christian from 7 Gamer Network, and it's time for another little Drink with Destiny. So I've been thinking about why it takes certain decks quite a long time to become established in the meta. And what triggered this was I've recently started playing against quite a few Unkar Vader, like Daddy Vader, single die builds. And it's quite strong, so much so that I'm actually going to, one of the videos I do after this Drink with Destiny will be a streaming video of my play with an Unkar Vader build, and I find it fascinating because I think, well, hang on, those two characters have been around since Spirit Rebellion was released. On the face of it, it looks really cool. Vader does discard, Unkar's got sort of built-in discard. Now you may be sat there potentially thinking, yeah, I've played it, tried it, loads of people in my meta have played with it, whatever. I mean, I'm in a strong meta. I mean, in our area, I mean, we've got, I think, 100 people in our local Destiny group, and when we do tournaments, I mean, we're regularly into the sort of high teens on a weeknight. It's 20 plus at a weekend if we do a big tournament. So I'm in a healthy meta, and I've never played against it. I went to Euros. I didn't see a single person playing Unkar Vader, and yet suddenly it's coming about and it's quite good. So I just started to think, well, what could be the reason why certain decks take a little while to come into being or to be really recognised? And I think it's partly due to the way that our meta is broadcast, if you like, is communicated. And it's really through sites like SW Destiny DB. Not saying that's a problem. It's an amazing site. It's brilliant to use it all the time. But I think one of the things that is a possible reason, that I'm positing as a possible reason, is it with something like SW Destiny DB or Card Game DB or whatever, decks get posted up, and if they're really popular, like a lot of people go, yeah, great, like, favourite, save, whatever. What you end up building is this sort of perception straight away that, that this is a popular deck, this is a powerful deck. This is what lots of people are playing. And I think then if maybe you did have a little idea that was bubbling around and you think, I don't know if it'll really work against that, it could immediately discourage you from exploring your idea before you've really given it a chance. Now, first of all, I'd like to say, go for it, still build your deck and play it and do it. If there's one of the things that we do see in Spirit of Rebellion is there are a lot of decks that people are playing. I think there's one clear, strong, standout favourite, but it's not winning everything, POMAS, and there's lots of other decks that are winning things and doing really well. And of course, what we also see now is the meta starts to shift because people start to work against the big deck, the POMAS, and I think that's another reason why we can start to see decks that previously didn't really exist start to come into play. When someone makes a deck that does really well, is really strong, like a POMAS, what naturally tends to happen then is those counter decks to it. So if you've got a hard counter to a deck like that, what you need is something that can deal with big character dice. Well, actually, if the meta has generally been big character dice, because there's also been Vader, Raider and Palpatine, then decks that can deal well with that start becoming more and more powerful. So I think really the reason why a deck tends to mature later in the life cycle of a set or a meta, it tends to be a response type deck. So it's a deck that can probably do well against most decks, it does fine against most decks, but it's got a really favourable matchup against the top decks that we'd see. And so, I think something like the Unkar Vader is actually really quite a strong deck, quite a strong build against POMAS. And so, it's going to do well at store champs and things like that. And it can really handle itself with some of those other big character decks because it's got access to great removal and so on and so forth. So this is where I think the crux of it is. We see these decks become big in the meta because they can get out there, because communication's so good now with sites like SW Destiny DB. A meta establishes, people start thinking, oh, this is what I'm seeing a lot of. They build a deck to counter it, or be more specific about countering it, that perhaps in another meta it wouldn't really be very strong. So if you'd built it at the start, you might have played with an Eon Car Vader build and thought, hey, this looks really good, discarding lots of cards, making some resources. But if no one else in your area, if everyone else was playing, you know, sort of, I mean, they wouldn't have been, but let's say they're playing like emo kids or something like that, where you might not necessarily have got the full value out of those cards, or like I don't know, early days was Rey Qui-Gon Jinn, you know, something like that, where there's not many massively expensive cards in those, and you're not going to feel like that deck's doing much for you. So I think I just find it interesting. Maybe it's just I'm identifying how metas build and grow and change, but I find it fascinating. So here's what I was thinking I could leave you with is, what are you looking at in your meta, like your local meta? What are the top players in your meta playing? What do they seem to gravitate towards? What characters are you seeing them trade for in trade forums and all that kind of thing? What decks do they look like they're building and practicing with and playing against you with at club nights and things like that? And don't write off some other builds that you might not have looked at for quite a while. Check the internet, see if someone else. My experience is people have generally built a better deck than I can build. Okay, I love deck building, I love tweaking, and I'll spend hours doing it, but generally there's always somebody better than you, whatever it is you're trying to do on the whole. So I always like to look and see what are other people doing with these builds that I've tried out or tried to put together. Because even if it's just one or two cards, it can make a big difference. So do have a look at old builds, old ideas that you had, that you thought, oh, this doesn't seem to be working 6, 8, 10 weeks ago. Maybe it wasn't, but now that we're starting to get deep into this meta now, and stuff is starting to really change, I'd go back and revisit a couple of builds that you might have sort of poo-pooed earlier on and been like, nah, this is just never going to work, and actually now it might be quite useful, it might be quite powerful, it might be quite good, because the metas start to change, and we're already seeing POMAS is less of a thing, it seems, than it has been previously. So there's just a few thoughts really, on how you can look at your meta, how you can maybe play some decks that you perhaps had sort of brushed under the carpet previously, and just have a go and think about it, because as meta changes, old decks can kind of become a new thing again, and even sort of almost undiscovered builds can suddenly show themselves to be really quite strong. Anyway, until next time, keep enjoying Destiny.